You can't be serious, man. You cannot be serious!
Two of you cannot be serious. Mick is now not on the phone, and it's just you and I, Don.
Why are we doing part two?
Because I want to get your opinion on a couple of things that I'm going to read out, seeing as we cannot cover the coronavirus anymore.
You sure you're not wanting just to listen to your own voice back later on?
Well, I'm going to hope you're going to engage in what I'm about to read out.
What are you going to read out?
Don.
Please start.
Don, I'm about to read out something and I want your opinion on it.
Okay, well, read.
Well, I was about to. You've just wasted 2 minutes of saying, what am I going to... I'm going to read it out. This is my point about, and pity Mick's not here, this is about why, economically speaking, remember I said economically speaking, it's no point about doing anything about global warming. Now, I want your opinion on this. This is not
Hang on. I've got to digest this. We don't... What was it again?
Okay, I'll try and do it in English.
Yes, and slowly.
This is why, economically speaking, it is no point doing anything about global warming and carbon emissions, right? Economically speaking. And this is not me saying this. This is from the United Nations, who said this admittedly about 6 years ago, but it would probably be pretty accurate now. And this is not me saying it, but this is why, economically speaking, it's ridiculous what's going on. They say that we, the planet, burn... Now, you've got to concentrate on this.
Just read the letter. I'm concentrating.
We burn 30 billion tonnes of CO2 annually into the atmosphere. 30 billion tonnes. That's the equivalent of 2 parts per million into the atmosphere, or 1 part per 15 million. 2 for 30 billion, 1 for 15.
Yeah, you've lost me, but keep going. Just read the letter.
What haven't you
understood? What are you talking about? 30 billion? Just read the letter.
I said we burn 30 billion tonnes into the atmosphere. I'll keep going until... that is the equivalent of 2 parts per million into the atmosphere, or 1 part per 15 billion. If it's 2 parts per 30, it's 1 part per 15. The United Nations says if we do nothing to curb global emissions by the end of the century, instead of it being 1 part per million, it'll end up being 468 parts per million, which will be the equivalent of 7 trillion tonnes into the atmosphere. 7 trillion tonnes. And that 7 trillion tonnes will add 7 degrees of global warming. You with me? Now listen to this. See if you can work this out, Donald. In order to save 1 degree of global warming, if 7 degrees is 7 trillion tonnes, in order to save 1 degree of global warming, how many trillion tonnes do we have to forego? 7 degrees, 7 trillion, 1 degree?
1 trillion.
Right, 1 trillion.
So
if you divide the number we started with in the first place, which I said was 30 billion, didn't I?
Keep going.
30 billion into 1 trillion. How many years will it be before we save 1 degree of global warming? So it's a simple mathematical equation. 3 into 10. 3 into 10 goes 3. So it's 33 and a third years before we save 1 degree of global warming. And that is if we have no emissions at all. No trains, no planes, no cars, no air conditioners, no nothing. That's why it is futile saying that carbon emissions, economically speaking, you can do anything about it, because if you want to do something about it, you've got to go back to when you were a Luddite and you had no mod cons in this world.
But if you watched, again, another program, and it has been used for quite a while, about the ruining of the Amazon forest and what an important important part it does in the economy. I wonder if that statement that you just read out then was published before the Amazon was decimated, as it is being decimated now.
It is being decimated. They say the planet has never been greener than it has been up until this day.
But what about the Amazon? They said the important what it does as far as our world is concerned.
Yes, because all plants emit CO2 into the
Exactly.
atmosphere. And
Not CO. No, they take CO2's carbon. They take it in and put out oxygen.
that's correct. And they say the planet has never been greener than it is today.
Well,
Anyway, Don, I'm not saying this. This is why. And I say, notice Greta. You know Greta, that stupid little girl.
She's unfortunately had coronavirus as well. I hear.
Can you believe that? She said she had coronavirus, and it was due to global warming. And now she's been rained on and snowed. And can you believe this? How do people swallow her up?
Keep going. What's your letter?
Well, now this was. I want your opinion on this, Donald. This is. You'll think this is a bit risque, but it's not. This was from an actual article taken from the LA Times. And this was written to the LA Times about an incident that was reported in a medical journal, right? And it's about a couple who were having a felching session with a gerbil.
Sorry.
Don.
Sorry.
They were having a felching session with a gerbil.
Woo.
And the
no. Please tell me.
I'm about to read out
Pauline
the letter.
Pauline Hanson says, please explain. Please explain.
This was reported in the LA Times in a medical journal, and this was the article. Felching is. Do you know what felching is, Donald?
That's what I'm trying to ask you.
Oh well, it'll be.
Please explain. Didn't you hear me?
Well, it'll be apparent in the letter, right? This is. I'm reading from the article. In retrospect, lighting the match was my big mistake, but I was only trying to retrieve the gerbil. Eric Tomawoski said to a bemused bevy of doctors in the severe burns unit of the Salt Lake Hospital. Tomawoski and his homosexual partner Andrew Kiki Farnham had been admitted for surgery, emergency treatment after a felching session had gone seriously wrong. And then this is in quotes. I pushed a cardboard tube up his rectum and slipped Ragu, our pet gerbil.
What?
And pushed our pet gerbil in, he explained. As usual, Kiki shouted, Armageddon, my cue that he'd had enough. I tried to retrieve Ragu, which is the gerbil, but he wouldn't come out again. So I peered into the tube and struck a match, thinking that the light might attract him. At a hushed press conference, a hospital spokesman described what happened next. The match ignited a pocket of intestinal gas and a flame shot out the tube, igniting Mr. Tomawoski's hair and severely burning his face. It also set fire to the gerbil's fur and whiskers, which in turn ignited a larger pocket of gas further up the intestine, propelling the rodent out like a cannonball. Tomawoski suffered second-degree burns and a broken nose from the impact of the gerbil, while Mr. Farnham suffered first and second-degree burns to his arms and lower intestinal tract. Now, that's what can happen when you experiment with, you're talking about testosterone or whatever you said it was last.
Tell me what a gerbil is.
It's like a ferret, Donald.
Well, I don't.
You don't know what a gerbil is?
No.
A gerbil is a little furry thing that apparently people who are sexually...
I understand all that, but just tell me what a gerbil is. You said it's a ferret.
It's a little small rodent.
Rodent, like a mouse.
Well, I think it is.
You don't know what it is.
Of course I know what it is. Look, that's what it is. What is it? I've got it up on the computer for you. What is it? What do you explain it, what a gerbil is?
Looks like a rat.
Well, that's like a rodent. I said a rodent. That's a rodent. So what do you think of that? That's how people get their...
Where are you? Where is that a letter somewhere?
This is another letter.
Where's it from?
This is from the Mozambique Fisheries and Game...
The Mozambique.
These are letters that get put out and people find them interesting. And I'm asking, this is a letter from the Mozambique Fisheries and Wildlife Department, right? And this is a warning letter that's up on there because when people go out on safari, that they get warned. And this is what it says. Due to the rising frequency of human-lion encounters, the Ministry of Fish and Wildlife branch in Mozambique is advising hikers, hunters, fishermen and any motorcyclists that the use of outdoors recreational work-related function is to take extra precautions while in the bush. We advise outdoorsmen to wear small noisy bells on clothing so as to give advanced warning to any lions that might be close by so as you don't take them by surprise. We also advise anyone using out of doors to carry pepper spray with him or her in case of an encounter with a lion. Outdoorsmen should also be on the watch for fresh lion activity and be able to tell the difference between lion cub shit and big lion shit. Lion cub shit is smaller and contains lots of berries and basic fruits. That's small.
Yeah, I got it.
Big lion shit has bells in it and smells of pepper. Ministry of Fishery and Wildlife Department, Mozambique. So they're saying pepper and bells got nothing to do with it. They'll eat you. They didn't give a fuck about the bells or the pepper. You'll be eaten. So have you ever been on a safari, Donald?
No.
Have you seriously never been?
Never been.
Get to Botswana one day.
Doesn't interest me.
So you wouldn't be interested in seeing a lion or a giraffe or a hippopotamus or a tiger? No. Well, you wouldn't see a tiger. Do you know why you wouldn't see a tiger?
Because they're in India?
They're in Asia, correct. Just like, have you ever been down to the Antarctic?
No.
Would you like to go and see polar?
No.
Would you like to see polar bears down there?
No, you see them in the North Pole.
Well done, Donald.
Thank you, Johnny.
Just testing.
Come on.
Now, who's that?
Oh, I don't know. Somebody coming through the door.
Who is it?
It's Ricky.
Ricky.
Johnny, he rocked up the other day unannounced and he's rocked in again.
Okay, well, Ricky Nixon's wandered in. I asked him to come in just to see if he could have a chat to you about things. What are you doing? Sit down. Speak into the microphone. Turn his microphone on, please. I'll have to do it because Rod is out behind a glass partition. What are you doing here?
Well, I came down to chat with you, Sam, but I thought
about what?
I thought you might want to have an opinion on the players taking pay cuts.
That's a very interesting question. If you are contracted by an employer if you're contracted by an employer to receive a certain amount of equity every month or every year, it's a very hard thing to justify as long as if you take a pay cut, they'll make it up when things come good. I don't know. What do you think, seeing as you've run half the competition's finances when you were a player manager? Donald, what do you think?
Well, I think in these times, I think it's got to be very flexible. Everybody's got to be flexible. And, yeah, if everybody's doing it hard, I think the players should do it hard as well. I understand a contract's a contract, but there are certain circumstances. And this is one of them.
No, I agree with you, Don.
Can I also go on and say, Rick, I would like to know if the officials within the clubs, the fat cats, are taking a cut themselves because they are overpaid for what they do. They don't require the amount of money that they are receiving to live on. They could live on 90% or 80%. That's 20% of what they're getting. They could live quite comfortably on that as well, and that would save a lot of money as well.
Oh, look, I agree on both points there. And, the thing is that I think what people got to understand is we all went into shock 2 or 3 weeks ago when, people lost their jobs. And, I know myself and Sam and and you'd probably know doing speaking gigs, the amount of speaking gigs cancelled indefinitely, and it does impact you. It doesn't matter which way you look at it. I mean, I've got all these local footy clubs ringing me every day. What do? We paid a guy 10,000 sign-on. Now we've got no income. We're going broke.
The panel operator who is out behind a Perspex glass, who is running this, I can't mention his name and he doesn't like it being mentioned, Rod Law. He says, I think he's held a sign up through the Perspex, he says, you cannot ask for payment if you're not providing the service that you were originally contracted to give. So it is a bit of a quid pro quo. We can't provide the service because the game is not running, and therefore we can't pay you because you haven't given us what we are paying you for. I think I'm just getting I think that's what he's saying through the perspex. He's
Yeah.
got a thumbs up.
He's got the thumbs up.
That's basically what he was saying, because we're
That's right at his best.
Because we can only have a group of two, and I know I can see you through.
Yeah.
I can see you. I can see you through the perspex glass, Ricky. So you're well quarantined away from us. But Don and I are here 8 feet apart, and. All right, mate. If you've got anything to say, write it up on the. I can see. I can see. He's got a whiteboard out there. He's giving me notes. So go on.
Well, no, I was just going to say this, Sam, is that my management experience would have told me to take a chill pill for a few days while we actually get over the actual, I guess, the excitement of what was going on, the shock of what was going on, and let's then sit down and say what's best for the competitions, what's best for the players, and what's best is simply this: is plan for the future. You can't change yesterday. So the players need to accept that, yeah, guess what? We're in this situation now. It's not going to change. Let's plan for the future.
So where do you think, Donald, where do you think the competition is going to be when it, and Ricky, listen to this, please,
Sorry,
through the
Perspex. This is
where do you
Perspex doing
think
my
the
editing.
competition will be, Don, when it eventually starts up again, if ever, not if ever.
Well, we're only getting little bits of, and what worries me is that the AFL have taken or been given a $500 to $600 million loan from their banks. How are they going to repay that?
Well, you wouldn't reckon they got the security of a $600
Well,
million.
they have got the security of something, and I think they own Marvel Stadium.
Yeah,
They own that.
million.
So that could go by the board, but
The secret will lie in the future media rights, which in my view won't be the traditional ones with free-to-air TV, etc. The secret will lie with the Facebooks and Amazons of this world who'll distribute it worldwide and got way more attention and way more income and subscriptions than what free-to-air TV will have in Australia.
So you're saying the nines and sevens
they're
and tens
finished.
of this
They're
world
finished.
will be defunct.
Correct,
As
they're
far
finished.
as broadcasting the football, and you'll have to pay to watch it.
You'll have to subscribe to watch AFL football in the future, probably starting in 2
There'll be
years'
no
time.
free to air, no free to view. It'll be all pay to view.
That's the only way I can see the competition being underwritten and the future of the game. And when I say the future of the game, I'm talking about there's only 18 AFL clubs. There's 18,000 local football clubs around Australia that need to be supported as well.
So, Don, would you
but
pay?
no, the local football clubs don't need support. They'll garnish that from the local community.
Most of it does come from there, in fairness, Don, but they do need some support from
They
the
get
league
nothing.
as such.
They get absolutely nothing from the AFL.
No,
local
but if the
football.
game's going to continue, the world's changed, and you know it's not going to be as simple as it used to be, is it? So
I think it
I'm not
is.
disagreeing
I
with
think,
you.
I
I
think
think
we've complicated the world. I
Yep.
think it can be made simplistic, and I think out of all this, that is one thing. We'll get back to a simple formula, and football will go back that as well. But what worries me, why do they need $600 million?
Effectively, it's because the money's gone into Marvel Stadium, and the money's not sitting there in a war chest; it's sitting there in concrete and seats down at Docklands. And whether
Yeah, but what are they going to do with the $600 million? I mean, everybody's taking a breather at the moment. The people who are lending the money are taking it. Oh well, we'll back off for 6 months or however long it takes. What are they doing with the $600 million?
They're dividing it up between the 18 clubs, are they?
No, it has to support leagues around Australia, and it has to support their biggest.
Hang on, Rick. Leagues around Australia. Why have they got to support leagues around Australia, and who's getting the money in the leagues?
Because they created a precedent, Don.
But the only people getting paid in the local leagues are the bureaucracy or the administrators who have come out of the AFL.
Yep.
Those that there might be an office of those in our district down there. Certainly not the clubs are being supported. It is the people who've got their snout in the trough.
Right,
and their employees.
Alistair Clarkson got this right, is that we've over-professionalised the whole of football in Australia to the point where we've got league executives in local country towns who run that area of football on wages of $100,000 plus.
That's
because
right.
they're doing all this extra peripheral stuff that does take up their time and everything. We don't need that extra. We need to
do not
simplify the
need
game
it.
back to what it was.
We do not
No,
need
we
it,
don't.
And they've ripped the heart out of the AFL.
Yep.
Have ripped the heart out of country and local football
100%.
by rejigging it, especially. And I know for a fact down on the Mornington Peninsula how they've ruined it down there.
Why don't you stand for a position in the AFL, seeing as you're a legend and a warrior? Why don't you get up there and give this...
John, you've got to be socially acceptable, and your views have got to go along the party line.
That is absolute... You don't have to be
John,
socially
I've sat
acceptable.
on committees, and
Yeah,
if
you're
your
not
view
soci-
is a little contrary to the
I can
to the
understand-
majority of the committee, you are deemed an outcast.
I can understand you're not socially acceptable, Donald. I know, because you're a very austere, clinical man who has no humour, and you're very stolid, and you just have no leniency or flexibility
see
in anything you do in life.
No, I just see you don't tinker with something that is already working well.
If it ain't
And
broke, don't fix it.
Country football was working well, but the AFL in the last 2 or 3 years have come down and rejigged it again. They did it 30 years ago. They tried it 30 years ago, and they did it again. And I've got an article here from I think it's the Alberton League, saying how...
The what
yes,
league?
It is, the Alberton League. There it is in the...
Where is it?
Alberton League's down in Gippsland.
Yep, it is,
And how it will go out of existence because of the fact that they're rejigging the Allabank League, the West Gippsland League, and whatever else. They're all
Mick,
screaming.
John, speak into the microphone, please.
Well, I'm trying to read as well as speak, Johnny.
Yeah,
Where
it's
is-
difficult to read and speak at the same time. I'll give you that, Don. But if you could get your mouth in front of the microphone, that'd be good, because the mask is deflecting some of your enunciation. And
I'm finding it hard behind this screen to actually see who's actually online and who's not. Where's Mike Sheahan? Is he hiding under the desk or behind a chair somewhere?
Mike is in a bubble,
Oh.
a sanitised bubble down at Sorrento.
Right.
And he's coming out for air occasionally. He's breathing through a tube through it.
When
And
it suits him.
Pardon?
When it suits him.
Yeah, that's right, when he hasn't got anything else on important.
Unfortunately, the game's a victim of what sometimes, or happens a lot in business. If you actually become super successful, then you do go and do all these peripheral things that you think are great for the business that you're running or the game that you're running, etc. They've now got to come back to reality. It's as simple as that, and I think it's going to be a good thing for the game.
I think I take your point. I just let it go by. But what is your saying, John? It's a piss week. Something about
It's a dinky little competition at the
Competition.
bottom of a dinky little country, which
Exactly.
we love, both the country
like
and
that.
the competition. but
it
it's
is very
dinky.
very relevant.
Stop talking
I
about
thought-
Tasmania like that, Sam. Jesus.
Very relevant statement, because you go overseas, people ask you, "Oh, you're from America. You're English. Haven't heard of Australia?"
No.
And we've got a competition that's played in the southern part of Australia. I think we think it's bigger than what it really is.
Can I ask you a question, Don and Sam? Would you travel overseas in the next 5 to 10 years for a holiday?
Yes, I would.
Would you?
Where would you go, Donald? And who would you go with?
Well, I haven't done the south of France. I'd go by myself again.
You go by
Backpack.
yourself,
Well,
would
I've
you?
done it by myself.
Well, why
backpack
would you go
myself,
by yourself?
Because I've got no one to take.
Well, Donald, please, you might be able to befriend someone. You know, you're the
You
got some
asking
people-
me where I'd
take-
like to go?
you're the person who said.
I'd like to go to the south of France, Ricky. I'd like to see
Yeah.
Croatia. I'd like to see St. Petersburg, and that's it.
Czechos-
3 places I'd like to see before.
Czechoslovakia.
Would you
I've
go
been
next?
there,
Would
I've
you
been
go
to
next
Prague.
year if you
What, in
could?
1993?
I don't know if
Or would you
if
wait a year or two?
No, it depends on the state of the,
okay.
how
Fair
the
call.
economy. I'd
Don,
go.
Don, you could find someone. This is your recipe for love. You said that someone you want to spend the rest of your life
No,
in
no,
a
that's
nursing
what-
home with,
No, the lady from Sorrento said that, who listened to our podcast. She
and
listens
said,
every week.
"This is Don's definition of love." Listen, go ahead.
My friend's definition of love,
Melissa, you listening?
Listen to this.
being able to spend your time with somebody
At a retirement
in a
village.
retirement home or an old people's home.
That's love.
That's
Don
love.
says.
No, that's not what I say.
Why don't you
this
see if
is
you can
what-
spring someone from a retirement village and whip them over to the south of France?
Well, my grandmother,
If
who was
they're still
93
capable,
and
you
then
can jump on top of them.
put into a retirement home in Bendigo, asked me to come and see her urgently. I thought she was sick. When I got up there, she said, "Can you help me?" I said, "What with?" She said, "I've got to get out of here. There's too many old people in this joint."
Yep.
So you'd like to go to the south of France, Don?
Well, I'd like to do
what
South.
you know
I've
about
just
the-
told you the 3 places I'd like to do, if you listen, John. St.
listen,
Petersburg,
Croatia.
and south of France.
And do you know what the main attraction in St. Petersburg is?
They tell me it's the nice. I thought Prague was a very nice city. That's in Czechoslovakia, or the Republic of Czechoslovakia, or is it? No, the Czech Republic.
I think the big...
Czech Republic.
Yes, yes.
So I thought Prague was a very nice city, but they tell me that St. Petersburg is better.
In Russia.
Yeah, architecture wise.
Oh, so architecture. So it's south of France, Donald. Just say you got onto someone from a retirement village, you could take them over there. What would you do in
Travel the south of France. What would you What would you do?
Sampling the very nice
No, just
Beaujolais
travel
and
from village to
Chablis.
village or town to town.
the clarets over there?
What do you normally do when you travel, John?
Well, what we normally do is we go out and socialise. You would stay in your room because you don't
so
speak
you
to anyone.
socialise with the locals.
If I was in the south of France, I would, but you wouldn't go out and
And your
socialise.
command of the French language would
Give us some of your French.
bonjour,
Pardon?
bonjour, parlez-vous English? And they say no, and then you at least attempted their language, and they're far more patient with you.
Just on those two words
Well,
that you said.
that was my approach when I went to France last time. I travelled the north of France.
Quelle heure-t-il?
What?
Quelle heure-t-il? What time?
Parlez-vous English?
Yeah, no, you'll be a hit over there, Donald. Yeah, with that stuff. You know, that'll be good. And so Croatia, what do you know about Croatia?
Nothing.
Why you
Nothing.
picked that out? What against the Aurora Borealis?
No, I just got a fascination with Croatia.
And you've never been there?
No, that's
What-
why I'd go. Why have you got to go? I want to go and have a look at Croatia.
Well, maybe I could go with you. And Rick, about the three of us.
What a trip.
Croatia's nice. One of the countries that I think is the most magnificent countries along the coast is Yugoslavia. No one talks about Yugoslavia. It's the most beautiful coastline ever.
Where is Yugoslavia?
Yeah, exactly. All I know is you head sort of east of Croatia.
East is inland.
was a republic.
Hang on, can he talk behind the perspex? Can you give him a microphone? Can you give that fellow who's trying to yell out behind the perspex a microphone?
he was saying that Yugoslavia doesn't exist anymore.
Oh, my mistake. Sorry. I'm thinking 1985.
And east of Croatia is inland, you
What's
idiot.
the
What
capital
do you
of the Czech Republic? Dubrovnik, is it?
check? Prague.
What?
Prague.
Or
Can you
what's
tell I haven't been to Europe for a while?
Ever.
Went in the
Prague,
camper van.
Johnny.
What's
Johnny,
the
Prague.
capital of what was the
Yugoslavia.
what's the capital of,
I don't know where Yugoslavia is.
It's, where can I say?
you know, and they used to call Peter Dacos the Macedonian marvel. He's now the Bosnia-Herzegovina marvel.
So it doesn't exist anymore. Yugoslavia is what I'm being told from behind the perspex. So the country's disappeared
I'm trying
completely.
to think of which country.
So
would it
who's
be?
taking it
You ever
over?
been to Persia?
Persia? No.
Oh, what's Persia become?
Iran.
Well done, Donald.
Yes.
Have you been to Bombay? What's that now?
Yeah, good one.
Yes, correct.
Come on.
But what's Yugoslavia? No one knows the answer.
It's a combination of Croatia,
Right.
Serbia, Macedonia,
Yes.
and they had a war and they split it up.
Bombay.
Bombay.
Okay.
Mumbai.
Oh, God. Mumbai.
And what about Ceylon?
Sri Lanka.
Well done.
Thank you, Johnny. What else?
Remember the man with the glass eye that used to broadcast on Norman May
Yes.
when the Olympics were on, and Ceylon had just changed its name to Sri Lanka, and he was reading off the thing as out came Sri Lanka with the
the flag, banner.
the flag up there, and he said, and here comes Ceylon, because he was reading it off the sheet. He said, here comes Ceylon. He said, no, this is Ceylon. He said it's Sri Lanka. That's what they call Ceylon now, Sri Lanka. That's the different way to spell it if you're over in that country. Didn't realise they'd changed the name to Sri Lanka that year of the Olympics.
Interesting story. He was
Norman May was
a great surfer. He was a
Norman
good
May?
Yes, good surfer.
what, the commentator
Yes,
with a glass eye.
yes.
Well, he couldn't see what? How he couldn't see
Well,
the wave?
you don't have to have two eyes to be able to swim, but he was a good surf swimmer.
It'd be pretty if you're a surfer. It'd be pretty handy to see which way the wave was breaking.
Well, you can do that with one eye.
Not if you give your left eye, you've got a
When
glass.
you roll your head a little bit further around. catch the wave.
Doesn't strike me as a surfer.
So do you think the competition will start back this year?
Look,
Ricky?
I think at the moment they're basing everything. It was interesting last night. I don't know if you heard these stats. Is we are collating the most amount of tests per capita population in Australia. So hence, the infection looks like it's a lot higher.
Who? Victoria?
Australia. So the testing in Australia per capita, the percentage is way higher than any other country in the world. So hence, it's going to look like we're actually in a worse position than what we actually are. And I think some common sense needs to be brought into this debate. But answering your question, Sam, what will happen with football is the answer is we're not going to know for 8 weeks. But my medical advice is it takes about 4 weeks to understand what the virus is and what it does to people's bodies, and another 4 weeks to come up with a solution.
Yeah, but the footballers haven't got it. They won't play.
No,
They've
but
got
an A-League soccer player has, and a rugby official, I believe, at a club has in the last 48 hours. But no AFL player has tested positive at the moment, and in fact, I don't think there's too many at all have even had signs of it. And that's the other thing is a lot of people are creating headlines out of someone might have coronavirus. They go to hospital and they've only just got a cold, and they've got maybe a sign of the first stages of flu, which of course are going to impact us in about 8 weeks' time.
So, Donald, you would have seen if you'd been handling this man, if you were a player manager, you saw Brent Todd, who was interviewed.
Yeah.
He plays for the Gold Coast in the rugby. He's just signed with the Gold Coast. Brent Todd was asked on camera why he was glad to go to the Gold Coast. He said, and I quote, "I would love to go to the Gold Coast. The Sheilans are good looking and I want to fuck them all." That's what he said. That was on a press conference.
He has to be a bit more honest, doesn't he?
I'd say you can't get more candid than that, Donald. That's honesty.
I'm not going to comment on this.
I can show you that on. You think I'm making that? I can show you that on. We can play it.
Is that what he said?
Come. If you can tell me how to get this on the. I'm just speaking out behind the perspex.
Why don't you put a couple of holes in the perspex, then your voice will be able to carry through it. You won't have to talk as loud.
I was going to ask you another question about where this is headed.
The football, the season. We didn't give a definitive answer.
Oh, no. Did you see the Ben Cousins interview?
Yes, I did.
Right, Don saw it. I didn't. Oh, here it is. Here it is. This is on air. You got to play it. Sound up.
Brent Todd will sport new club colours in 1992. He'll trade the Canberra jersey that he's worn in 3 grand finals for that of the wooden spooners, the Gold Coast Seagulls. It's been the worst kept secret on the Gold Coast, but this is the signature that Wally Lewis and Larry Maloney have been waiting to add to that of State of Origin prop forward Steve Jackson's.
I was always going to come here no matter what. I made the decision way before the grand final. Well, mainly the Gold Coast is because the Sheilans are good looking. I want to fuck them all.
Yeah. So
That was in 1992. 1992.
A lot of hilarity and a lot of mirth there. Using women as sexual objects, Donald. I mean, it's disgraceful, isn't it? What's going on? I mean, fancy saying that about.
That's nearly 30 years ago. We have improved in 30 years.
Yep.
Just a bit, just a tad.
But that went to air, and of course, that's just ribald stuff, isn't it?
Now, boys, you still haven't answered my question. Can I
was?
get back to it? Why does the AFL need $600 million?
Ben Cousins, please. I want to
Oh, well, I'm sorry. Okay, we'll get back to...
I saw it, and whatever I say will be the next headline. So I'll leave
say
it.
it.
No,
I think I've had my say on it, and that was I want people to focus on his kids and his family. Stop focusing on Ben, because Ben is Ben, and we ain't going to change the situation too
But is
quickly.
Ben focusing on his family and his kids?
Well, I don't know that because I decided to walk away 6 weeks ago because I'd had enough after 15 years. Simple as that.
What do you mean walk away? Were you in contact with Ben up until 6 weeks ago?
Yep.
In what capacity, Ricky?
I would say in the capacity as a friend.
Counselling and guidance?
No, definitely
Jesus, it's like putting Dracula in charge of the blood bank.
You can't help someone who can't help themselves, Sam. Simple as that.
That's quite right,
So
Ricky.
I'm not going to start to say I was cancelling or nothing like that. I was talking to him as a friend, trying to help him, and just felt that it wasn't. I was just, what would you say, talking to deaf ears. So
Now tell me this. You are a close friend and confidant of Gary Ablett Sr. And I'm not getting you to speak out of school about anything, not that you would, but you're in quite regular contact with him. What is driving that man to wherever he's going?
Oh, quite simply, I remember the day Gary 15 years ago said, I want to take you out fishing. I said, why are we going fishing for? I haven't got time for that. And he said, no, I need to go fishing with you. Now, I was trying to get him on the footy show with you, and I had him a deal for a record amount of money, which was going to get me a new BMW. Went out fishing with him, and he said, Rick, have you ever thought about this? I don't want to be like everybody else. And that actual statement that day changed my whole mind about stop trying to make everybody the same as Jason Dunstall or Wayne Carey who, go into media careers. Not everybody wants to be like that. Tony Lockett and Gary Ablett, the two biggest goal kickers in the competition in the history of the world, both like their privacy. And I respect that. I respect that a lot. And I've learnt to live with that now.
So you think it's not...
Doesn't mean it doesn't stop me asking him every day to do something. But
No, that's right. So there's a fine line between saying to people like Gary Ablett Sr., now, Gary, would you come and do an interview, or would you come and do this, or would you come and do that, as opposed to just leaving them alone? Do you think they don't have a responsibility, but do you think it's worth keeping asking Gary Ablett on the very off chance he might say, what the hell, I'll do it, because the public are crying out for it, or you just he is a lost cause as far as that goes? Not himself personally, but he's a lost cause as far as the public wanting to know anything about him.
Look, I understand the actual interest in Gary Ablett. I mean, I've seen it probably 3 years ago when I was at the bakehouse in Port Melbourne where you come. He came down for a coffee with me. There was 20 people in the bakehouse. All of a sudden there was 1,000 people turned up. He's like Beatlemania.
Yes.
And that's because no one hears from him. Whereas you see Wayne Carey every week on Channel 7. You don't hear from Tony Lockett. I mean, I'd love to do this one day, Sam, with you. And I saw this in America with Neil Diamond. He had a campfire at his ranch, and he had there Bruce Springsteen from memory, Elton John. He had them all around the campfire. And he was having just a heart-to-heart chat with them about, what they went through with their careers and, everything from drugs through to, dealing with the media to everything else. I thought, wouldn't it be great to have Sam and Don Scott sitting around with Wayne Carey, Gary Ablett, Tony Lockett?
You wouldn't have thought Don Scott, you're talking shit, Ricky.
Come on, Don, I want to include you in the conversation, mate.
Yes.
But no, I think people would like to see more of an interview like that where they can relax and talk rather than this straight across the desk that we saw the other night. It just didn't work.
No, Don, far be it from me. You would be an ideal person to sit and speak to those people.
Well, I think you'd ask the left
Gary
field
Ablett
questions.
and Tony Lockett, because you are not guided by staccato, sponsored, tailored, obvious Dorothy Dix questions. You have no fear in asking people things that not many people would think to ask, and that's not being deliberately mischievous with them or being intrusive, but you come from a completely different angle in life, Donald. I know this only too well. You're the most diverse, lateral, obscure man I've ever met.
Here's a question though, Sam. If you had 4 to 5 people around the table over the last, say, 30 years of football, 40 years of football, who would those 4 be? Who would be the most interesting draw cards you could have?
I don't think I'd invite anyone.
Just yourself? Talk to yourself?
I wouldn't even have a table of people.
Don, if you had to ask 4 people, 3. If you had to ask 3 people
who would you
you'd
ask,
like
Sam?
to interview, either live, who are alive or who are dead, who theoretically 3 people would you like have played our game to sit round and speak to? Gary Ablett would have to be one, wouldn't he?
No, not really.
Well, who would you
No,
ask?
I'm not that way inclined.
No, but we're asking you to be inclined for the theoretical question.
I'll throw 2 left fields
Okay,
at you.
go.
The
Go.
obvious is Ablett and the Carey, perhaps, being arguably the greatest, maybe Lee Matthews, but I reckon Tony Modra and I reckon Buddy Franklin. As 2 left field people, and I've got my TV ratings hat on as well here. We've got Adelaide and we've got Sydney involved, and that would create a lot of interest.
So would you like to speak to Tony Modra, Donald?
No, it doesn't work.
Would you like to sit and have a meal with him?
If I met him, I'd like to talk to him, but no.
What would you talk to him about?
I don't know what he's doing. I think he's into surfing. I'd ask him about that.
Yes.
Tony Modra was the only player who was similar to Gary Ablett, what I was talking about before. I went to his place when he was really flying in Adelaide, and there was like 100 girls out the front.
Yeah.
It was like Beatlemania. I've never seen anything like it in my life.
Well, there was another fellow in our day that was just as
Except
big,
at
if
Sam's
not
place.
bigger, and that was Peter McKenna.
Yes, Peter was a
Was he
very
a
similar.
heartthrob?
He was like a Hollywood. He was a Hollywood type.
He was big.
Yeah.
I don't think there's been anyone as big as McKenna.
Yeah,
You
in
know,
that
the
era.
same-
In that era, yes,
Wow.
I agree with
Well,
that. Tom.
don't you?
Yes,
You've
but-
been through it.
People forget about Peter McKenna.
Yep.
You're quite right, Donald. He was like a beetle
He was a
Looked like
Hollywood
a
type
Beatle.
player, wasn't he? Yeah, definitely.
and a very good kick of the football.
Great kick.
Very good.
Great kick.
A very good.
Rip it
Put
off.
out his own song.
What was it called?
Good one. Written by Johnny Young. I remember that. What was it called?
Warwick
And he had-
Warwick
he
Kappa might
had
be
his own
interesting.
television show as well. Daryl Summers. They started up Hey Hey It's Saturday.
What Peter McKenna and
Peter
Daryl?
McKenna
they
and
did
Daryl
too. Yeah.
early on. What was it? Saturday morning.
Yep.
Yeah.
They did.
And I think Peter might have. He did it for 2 weeks, and I think Neil Mann, the chairman of selectors or coach, said you either
gotta
did
stop.
make one or the other. So he's replaced by an ostrich.
When you think about it, he was probably the first of his kind to go outside the football field, wasn't he? Where he started doing, arguably Wayne Carey was big around the Michael Jordan time, but that was 20 years after Peter McKenna.
McKenna
Been
was
a
bigger
sign
than
held up
bigger.
at the-
he
Alex
was bigger.
Jezelenko was probably another that was a bit
Alex
of a Hollywood
Jezelenko.
off the field, I
A
think.
sign has been held up at the Perspex window. Smile all the while was what the
EJ Witten was another one.
Yes.
Yep.
Don, you
Bringing back a few memories for people listening.
you could start a interview program with people off the shelf. You could call it.
Stop pinching my ideas.
Yeah, you could.
Exactly.
All right. Well,
Okay.
look. So we think we're going to get through this. We don't think the season's going to start this year.
I think the season will start this year. I think it's probably not going to be the 1st of June. I think it's probably going to be more around July.
And then how will it work?
Well, there's two arguments to do. You just have a shortened season of maybe 12 games, or do you try and play 17 odd games? You're going to take you up to Christmas. The big thing, and I don't know if you've seen today's paper, is the BBL, the Big Bash League, have come out and said, well, sorry, we actually, inverted commas, have got the rights 100% to Marvel Stadium all over Christmas. So you want to pay us a big check if you want to play the grand final here. And so these are the things on collision course where it's not as straightforward as saying, we're going to play the grand final on Boxing Day Eve after the test during the day. That can't happen. Not in a big stadium anyway. Not in Victoria.
Well, I wish I was as confident as what you are, Ricky. I think we'll be locked down on the 1st of July.
Yeah, well, look, I can understand why you'd say that, and at the same time, I'm being optimistic. But if it was locked down, I wouldn't be surprised either, Don.
You can't. What, the football lockdown or the
Yeah.
No, our
well-
society be locked down. We're coming into winter.
Well,
This-
come
the
down
thing
to
that-
these stats.
I don't know whether the weather's got anything to do with this coronavirus, but they're in winter over in Europe. And I think China would have gone through the winter because it was in the
Correct.
northern hemisphere.
Correct.
Now, we have got to go through a winter down here. I wonder what's going to happen when it gets really cold down here.
Well, the cold air transmits the viruses a lot more than the warmer air, and that's the sort of thing we're facing.
Well, Doctor, thank you very much for that. Well, look,
Dr. Chicken.
what do you think, Don? Will we wind this up?
Oh,
Anything?
no, we could talk for ages. Johnny, what else?
I know we could talk for ages. Would it be interesting what
No,
we're
it'd be
talking
just
about?
shit.
All right. Well, what do you think?
I think we wind it up. We go out with
What
Daddy
incidentally, Ricky? What did you come in for? Did I
came in to-
forget an
I
appoint-
came
did
in
I
to ask-
forget an appointment I had with you, or what
Probably.
did you come
No,
in
I
for?
came in to ask Rod a question, thinking
Oh,
that
good.
you would have been off air by now.
No,
but,
I'm glad you're in. But,
then I
because,
realised when Mike wasn't here, I might as well take his spot with someone with a bit of
Hey.
intelligence on footy.
Yeah, well, he's just signalled through the Perspex window he's not speaking to you, so you haven't wasted it. You've come in here for
Nothing's
nothing.
changed in 30 years.
All right. Well, so that's it, Donald. This is we had our millionth download
Well done.
during the week.
Did you see the Herald Sun, was it yesterday, wrote a list of all the best podcasts and all that, and you guys weren't on it. I'm like, hang on, you've got 5 times more listeners than any of these
Was
podcasts
that,
I read
was
about.
that in the Herald Sun?
Herald Sun on Sunday, I think it was.
Yeah, because we don't.
Not aligned with them.
No, we're not aligned with them. That's how. Not dishonest. That's how
Creative.
ungracious
Oh,
people are.
right, okay, I got
we
it.
are number one in Australia.
That's it.
Yep, that's it.
All right.